There's a moment in every person's life when they stop and ask themselves, what am I even doing this for? It usually comes quietly, in between the noise, in the late hours after another long day, or in the silence that follows a major success where the victory feels oddly hollow. It's a simple question, but behind it is a powerful truth. Without purpose, we drift. And drifting, no matter how fast or how busy, is not the same as progress. Purpose isn't just a fluffy word to make us feel good. It's not a poster on a wall. It's the anchor in the engine. It keeps us grounded when things go wrong, and it propels us forward when we feel like giving up. If you look at the people who are most successful, not just financially, but emotionally fulfilled, respected, trusted, you'll find a common thread. They know why they do what they do. Their actions are aligned with something deeper than ambition. That's the habit. The daily, conscious return to clarity of purpose. But we've been conditioned to look for outcomes first. What do you want to be? What goal are you chasing? What number are you trying to hit? We're trained to answer with roles, metrics, or achievements. And so we live in a world where success is often confused with visibility or speed. We rush into careers, chase promotions, build businesses, or climb ladders without ever truly asking the only question that matters. Why? Let me tell you what happens when we don't ask that question. We burn out. We get frustrated, we feel like frauds. We succeed and feel empty, or we fail and feel lost. Without purpose, success becomes a finish line that keeps moving, and without purpose, failure feels like the end of the road instead of part of the path. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine waking up and knowing that what you're doing today matters, even if it's hard, even if no one sees it, even if the results don't show up right away. That's the power of starting with purpose. It gives meaning to your grind. It connects your habits to something bigger than the task itself. Let's be clear, purpose is not the same as passion. Passion is a spark. It's emotional, exciting, and important, but it comes and goes. Purpose is steady, it stays. It's the internal compass you build over time. And you don't find it by looking outward, you uncover it by looking inward. So it starts with asking honest questions. What makes me feel most alive? What kind of impact do I want to have on others? What values am I unwilling to compromise? Sometimes your purpose is tied to a mission, to solve a problem, to serve a group, to build something that lasts. Other times it's connected to a belief, a deep conviction about what matters. Either way, purpose always points to something beyond the self. It's not just about you. It's about how your actions influence the world around you. You might be wondering, but what if I don't know my purpose yet? It's okay. Most people don't wake up with it fully formed. It's not a lightning bolt. It's a process of discovery. And the best way to discover it is to pay attention. Watch how you respond to different situations. Notice when you feel energized or drained. Listen to what people consistently come to you for. Pay attention to what problems in the world bother you deeply, the ones you can't ignore. Purpose leaves clues. Here's the hard truth. If you don't decide your purpose, the world will try to assign one to you. The expectations of others, the pressure of performance, the noise of social media, they will happily tell you what your life should look like. And if you're not anchored, you'll chase shadows. That's why the habit of starting with purpose isn't a one-time realization. It's a discipline. You remind yourself of your why daily. You build rituals around it. You check your goals and decisions against it. This is especially critical when things get tough, and they will. When you're in a season of uncertainty, when nothing seems to be working, when you're tempted to give up or take shortcuts, that's when your purpose becomes your greatest advantage. Because while others are led by fear or ego or pressure, you are led by something more stable, more trustworthy, something you believe in. Purpose also brings clarity to your yes and power to your no. You stop saying yes to every shiny opportunity that looks good on the surface but pulls you away from your mission. You start choosing depth over distraction, focus over frenzy. You learn that success isn't about doing more, it's about doing what matters over and over again. And here's the beautiful part. When you live and work with purpose, people feel it. Purpose is magnetic. It draws people in. It builds trust. It creates a sense of direction that others want to follow. It turns work into service. It turns habits into legacy. You don't need to wait for permission to live on purpose. You don't need a title, a trophy, or 1,000 followers. You just need to start. Ask the hard questions. Be brutally honest. Don't chase what the world says is success. Build a life that reflects who you are and what you stand for. That's how you build something that lasts. That's how you build yourself. Because at the end of the day, purpose isn't just the key to success. It is success. Not in the loud, flashy way we often define it, but in the quiet, powerful way that makes everything else worth doing. Start there. Start with purpose, then build the rest. We live in a world obsessed with motivation. Everywhere you look, someone is shouting at you to get fired up, to find your spark, to stay hungry. Motivation has become a buzzword, a temporary fuel that promises transformation if only you chase it hard enough. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes like a wave. Other days, it disappears without warning. And if your success is tied to something that inconsistent, then your results will always be at the mercy of your mood. The people who achieve meaningful success, not the loudest, not the flashiest, but the ones who build something real and lasting, they don't rely on motivation. They rely on discipline. Because discipline doesn't ask how you feel. Discipline asks what you committed to, and that's what makes all the difference. Discipline is the quiet force behind every world-class performer, every resilient leader, every person who rises after a fall. It's not glamorous. It doesn't shout. It shows up when no one else does. It gets up at 5 a.m. not because it's exciting, but because it's necessary. It keeps promises long after the mood in which they were made has faded. It doesn't need applause. It's anchored in something deeper than emotion. It's grounded in choice. Let's break that down. Motivation is emotional. It's reactive. You watch an inspiring video or hear a powerful story and feel lit up inside. And for a moment, you believe you can do anything. But that emotion fades. Life gets busy. Resistance shows up. And suddenly, what felt possible yesterday feels impossible today. That's the cycle so many people get stuck in. Hype followed by hesitation, drive followed by drift. Discipline, on the other hand, is a decision made in advance. It's not about how much energy you have today. It's about staying loyal to what you said you'd do, especially on the days you don't feel like it. That's what builds momentum. That's what builds identity, because every time you choose discipline over comfort, you're reinforcing the kind of person you are. And over time, that identity becomes unshakable. Think of any habit that leads to success: consistent learning, exercising, leading with integrity, showing up fully for your team, finishing what you start. None of them depend on how motivated you feel. They depend on whether or not you've trained yourself to show up regardless. That's the hard part. That's the part most people avoid. But that's where the breakthrough lives. And here's the interesting thing. Discipline isn't about being rigid or robotic. It's not about grinding for the sake of it. Real discipline comes from clarity. You know what matters, so you prioritize it. You know what you're building, so you protect it. You've already answered the deeper question, why am I doing this? And that answer drives your behavior. Without that clarity, discipline can feel like punishment. With that clarity, discipline becomes an act of devotion. It becomes the way you align your actions with your values. You don't go to the gym because you love sweating at 6 a.m. You go because you value strength, resilience, health. You don't read for an hour a day because it's trendy. You do it because you're committed to growth, to sharpening your mind, to staying curious. Discipline is not restriction. It's freedom. The freedom to live on purpose rather than by impulse. One of the most powerful things you can do is train yourself to act even when you don't feel ready, to start the project when doubt is screaming, to make the call when fear says wait, to practice the skill when it's still uncomfortable. Because the truth is, you won't always be in the mood to do the thing that moves you forward. But the more often you do it anyway, the stronger that muscle becomes. And over time, you don't need motivation to act. Action becomes the motivation. We admire people who are consistent. The athletes, the creators, the entrepreneurs, the leaders who keep showing up year after year. But consistency isn't talent. It's not luck. It's not motivation. It's discipline. It's the simple daily decision to do the work, especially when it's boring, especially when it's hard, especially when no one is watching. That's what builds mastery. That's what earns trust. There's also a deeper kind of discipline we don't talk about enough, the discipline to rest, the discipline to say no, the discipline to pause, reflect, and recover. Discipline isn't just about pushing harder. It's about being intentional with your energy, knowing when to keep going and knowing when to step back. Because burnout isn't a badge of honor, and productivity without purpose is just movement without meaning. This kind of discipline requires emotional intelligence. It asks you to be honest with yourself, to know your patterns, to catch yourself when you're tempted to self-sabotage or seek short-term rewards. And it asks you to lead yourself, to parent yourself even through those moments, to say, I know you don't feel like it, but we're doing it anyway. It's not harshness, that's self-respect. If you're waiting to feel motivated before you take the next step, you may be waiting forever. If you're relying on external hype to carry you through, it won't last. What will last is the habit of choosing discipline, of showing up, of doing the work not because it's easy, but because it's who you are. That's what builds confidence. That's what builds success that actually lasts. So stop chasing motivation like it's the answer. It's not. The real answer is already in your hands. It's the next small choice. It's whether you keep the promise you made to yourself when no one is checking. That's where the difference is made. Not in the big, loud moments of inspiration, but in the quiet, consistent moments of discipline. You don't need to feel ready. You don't need to feel perfect. You just need to show up every day, especially on the days when it's hard, especially when no one else does. That's how the habit is formed. That's how the character is built. And that, not hype, not hustle, not fleeting motivation, is what will carry you all the way through. There's something extraordinary that happens when you feel truly heard, not interrupted, not half listened to, not waiting for someone to respond, but genuinely heard. In that moment, you don't just feel understood, you feel valued. And when people feel valued, they open up, they trust, and they engage in ways they never would otherwise. That's the power of listening. Real, deep, intentional listening. It's one of the most overlooked and underrated habits of success. We often confuse hearing with listening. Hearing is passive. It's what happens when sound passes through your ears. Listening is active. Listening is a choice. It means you set aside your assumptions, your distractions, your desire to respond, and you give someone your full attention. In a world that's moving faster than ever, where everyone is trying to talk over each other, that kind of presence is rare, and that's exactly why it matters so much. Success is often painted as a solo journey about being bold, having ideas, taking action. But real success, the kind that lasts and brings people with it, is built through connection. And connection starts with listening. You don't build loyalty by talking louder. You build it by listening deeper. Whether you're a leader, a parent, a friend, a teammate, or someone simply trying to make a difference, your ability to listen will determine how far you go and how many people are willing to go with you. Listening, real listening, is a form of service. It's a decision to put someone else at the center for a moment, to make space for their story, their experience, their truth, even if it challenges yours. Especially if it challenges yours. Because listening isn't just about agreement, it's about respect. It's saying you matter enough for me to slow down and pay attention. That kind of message, silent as it may be, speaks louder than most words ever could. One of the greatest misunderstandings in communication is that we listen in order to respond. We don't. Or at least we shouldn't. We should listen to understand what someone is really saying, what they're not saying, what they might be feeling but struggling to express. This requires patience, it requires humility, and it requires dropping the urge to be right, to fix, to win the conversation. Listening isn't a competition, it's an invitation. An invitation to empathy. And empathy is everything. It's what transforms a conversation into a connection. It's what turns a workplace into a community. It's what allows leaders to earn trust, not just command compliance. When you listen with empathy, people feel safe. And when people feel safe, they stop performing and start participating. They stop hiding and start contributing. That's how cultures are built. That's how innovation happens. That's how teams move from good to great. Think about the people in your life who have made the biggest impact on you. Chances are they weren't the loudest or the smartest in the room. They were the ones who took the time to hear you, to sit with you, to make you feel seen. That's not a coincidence. That's leadership. And it's not reserved for people with titles. Anyone can do this, but few choose to. Because listening at the level we're talking about is hard work. It means resisting the temptation to multitask. It means staying with someone even when what they're saying is uncomfortable. It means withholding judgment long enough to consider that maybe, just maybe, you don't know the full story. It means asking better questions instead of rushing to give your opinion. And sometimes it means saying nothing at all, letting silence do its work so that the other person can discover what they really think, what they really feel. But the irony is that while everyone wants to be heard, few are willing to listen first. And that's exactly why listening becomes a competitive advantage. It's rare, it's human, it's memorable. People don't walk away from a great listener saying, wow, they were so impressive. They walk away saying, I felt important. And in the long run, that's what builds influence. Not how important you seem, but how important you make others feel. In organizations, the consequences of not listening are massive. Ideas get missed, tension builds, people check out emotionally, even if they stay physically. And leaders wonder why engagement is low or why turnover is high. It's not always about pay or perks. Often it's about voice. People want to know they matter. They want to know their perspective counts. If you want commitment, listen. If you want creativity, listen. If you want culture, listen. This isn't about becoming soft, it's about becoming smart. Listening doesn't make you weak, it makes you wise. It doesn't mean you agree with everyone or that you give up your convictions. It means you're strong enough to hold space for other people's truths without immediately needing to defend your own. That's emotional maturity, that's leadership maturity, that's relational intelligence. We don't rise by speaking more. We rise by listening better. Every great mentor, every transformational coach, every impactful leader I've ever known had one thing in common. They listened. They made you feel like you were the only person that mattered in that moment. Not because they were pretending, but because they understood that giving someone your attention is the most generous thing you can do. So the challenge is simple but not easy. Be that kind of person. Practice the habit of listening like it's your greatest tool, because it is. Listen when it's inconvenient. Listen when it's awkward. Listen when it's tempting to jump in and talk about yourself. And most of all, listen to the people who don't have a voice in the room, because they're the ones who need it most. If you want to grow, listen. If you want to lead, listen. If you want to matter, listen. Not just once, not just when it's easy. Make it a habit, a discipline, a way of life. Because the most successful people don't talk the most, they understand the most. And that understanding starts with the simple but powerful decision to listen deeply and intentionally every single day. So there's a fundamental misunderstanding in the way most people approach success. We've been taught to believe that if we just work hard enough, stay focused enough, stay in our lane, and grind long enough, the results will take care of themselves. And yes, effort matters. Focus matters. Discipline matters. But over time, the people who rise, truly rise, are not just the smartest or the most skilled. They're the ones who understand how to build relationships. And they don't wait until they need help to start doing it. Too many people treat relationships like a transaction, like a tool in a box they can pull out when something breaks. I need a favor, I need a contact, I need support. And then suddenly they remember people, they start making calls, they send messages, they show interest, but only because they need something. And everyone can feel that. Because we all know what it feels like to be remembered only when it's convenient for someone else. That's not how trust is built. That's not how loyalty is earned. Relationships, real relationships, are not built in moments of crisis. They're built in the quiet moments, the unseen moments. The times when you show up with no agenda, when you ask how someone's doing and actually wait for the answer. When you cheer someone on without expecting a return. When you make time, not because it's useful, but because it's right. You don't build strong relationships by networking. You build them by caring. You build them by being curious, by asking questions, by listening, by remembering someone's child's name or the challenge they mentioned 3 weeks ago. You build them by being present. That's where connection happens. Not in the big gestures, but in the consistent, intentional acts of attention. And the truth is, we live in a time where real connection is becoming more and more rare. We have more tools than ever to stay connected. Email, DMs, texts, voice notes. And yet so many people feel more isolated than ever. Why? Because technology doesn't replace humanity. Convenience doesn't replace connection. It's easy to click like. It's easy to send an emoji. It's harder and more meaningful to pick up the phone, to sit across from someone, to listen without distraction. So that's where trust is built. Trust doesn't happen overnight. It's built like a bank account, one small deposit at a time. And it grows when you show up consistently, when your actions match your words, when you're not just visible when it benefits you, but dependable when it benefits others. That kind of relationship has depth. And when things go wrong, and they will, that's the kind of relationship that stands strong. Most people wait until they're in a valley to start looking for support. But by then, it's often too late. The bridges haven't been built. The foundation hasn't been laid. So the support they desperately need isn't there, or it feels strained. That's why you have to build relationships before you need them. You need to be investing in people now, not for what they can do for you, but for who they are. Because here's what's beautiful. The relationships you invest in without expectation often become the ones that surprise you most. They open doors you didn't see coming. They create opportunities you never asked for. They show up when you're down and don't need a reason to stand beside you. That's not a fluke. That's the result of trust, of equity, of presence. And this isn't just personal, it's professional. In business, your greatest asset isn't your product, it's not your pitch. It's your relationships. People don't buy from logos, they buy from people. They don't follow brands, they follow those they trust. And trust doesn't come from your marketing. It comes from how you treat people when no one's watching. It comes from whether you remember that behind every email is a human being, behind every deal is a dream, behind every decision is emotion. We think of relationships as soft skills, but they lead to hard results. Deals happen because of trust, collaborations happen because of connection, growth happens when people feel seen. And when your back is against the wall, the people who will help you are the ones you invested in long before the struggle began. This also means playing the long game. It means showing up for people even when it doesn't benefit you. It means helping someone else shine even when you're still trying to find your light. It means mentoring someone without recognition, supporting someone without spotlight, being generous with your time, your wisdom, your encouragement, because generosity creates gravitational pull. There's a phrase that often gets used in business. It's not what you know, it's who you know. But that misses something. It's not just who you know, it's how you treat them. It's whether they feel safe around you, whether they feel respected, whether they know that your relationship is not dependent on circumstance. That's the foundation. And it's built slowly, authentically. The truth is, we remember how people made us feel, not what they achieved, not what they owned, not how many followers they had. We remember the ones who stood with us, who called when they didn't have to, who celebrated us when no one else noticed. That's the kind of person worth becoming. So the challenge is clear. Start building now. Don't wait until you need something. Don't wait until the opportunity arises. Pick up the phone, send the message, ask how someone's doing, and care about the answer. Invest in people without keeping score. Show up even when it's not convenient. That's how real relationships are built. And when the time comes, when you face a challenge, when you're at a crossroads, when you're stepping into something bigger than yourself, you won't be standing alone. You'll be surrounded by the very people you once poured into, not because you asked, but because you earned it. That's not luck. That's not manipulation. That's leadership. That's legacy. And it all starts with this simple, powerful habit. Build the relationship before you need it. If time is our most limited resource, energy is our most valuable. You can't create more time in a day, but you can increase or deplete the energy you bring to it. And yet most people don't protect their energy. They give it away freely, unconsciously, as if it were limitless, but it's not. Energy is your internal currency. It's what fuels your ability to think, to lead, to love, to solve problems, to build something meaningful. And if you don't protect it, everything else starts to fall apart. Success isn't just about what you do, it's about what you can sustain. And you can't sustain much if you're constantly exhausted, mentally cluttered, emotionally drained. You can have the best ideas, the boldest vision, the sharpest strategy, but if your energy is leaking everywhere, you won't have the power to bring any of it to life. Protecting your energy isn't selfish. It's essential. But here's the thing. We're conditioned to push, to say yes, to prove ourselves, to keep going. We glorify hustle even when it costs us our health. We confuse burnout with dedication. We wear our exhaustion like a badge of honor. But what are we really saying? That we care more about productivity than presence? That we'll wait to rest until we break? That's not leadership. That's survival. And it's not sustainable. The people who do their best work over the long haul, the ones who remain grounded, focused, and resilient through change, they treat their energy like it's sacred. They don't give it to just anything or anyone. They are intentional with what gets their attention because they understand that not everything deserves it. You have to make choices. You have to say no to protect the yeses that matter. You have to recognize the conversations, the commitments, the habits that drain you and be willing to step away from them. That can mean limiting your time with negative people, cutting out distractions that steal your focus, or letting go of activities that no longer align with who you are becoming. Every no you say to something that drains you is a yes to something that fuels you. And energy protection isn't just about defense, it's also about offense. It's about proactively filling your tank, about doing the things that restore you, sharpen you, connect you to your why. That could be reading, exercising, journaling, meditating, walking in nature, laughing with people you love, or simply sitting in stillness. These aren't luxuries. They are leadership practices. Because the clearer and calmer you are internally, the more powerful you can show up externally. Think of energy as influence. The energy you carry into a room affects every person in it. If you're anxious, others feel it. If you're calm, others mirror that. If you're clear and confident, it creates a ripple. That's why managing your energy is not just a personal responsibility, it's a leadership responsibility. People don't just listen to your words, they respond to your state. They pick up on your presence. We often think managing our time is the key to getting more done, but managing your energy is what determines the quality of what gets done. You can have 8 hours in a day, but if you're distracted, depleted, and discouraged, those 8 hours won't count for much. On the other hand, one focused, energized hour can move the needle more than an entire day of scattered effort. That's the difference between motion and impact. Protecting your energy also means being mindful of what you consume. Not just food, but information, conversations, media, the voices you allow in. Every day you are either feeding your strength or feeding your stress. And most of the time it's subtle. The endless scroll, the news cycles, the complaining coworker, the internal critic. All of it adds up. And before you know it, you're carrying weight that doesn't even belong to you. Protect your mental diet like you protect your physical one. Choose what you consume wisely. It also means managing your self-talk. because no one speaks to you more than you do. The voice inside your head can either energize or exhaust you. It can push you forward or pull you under. You have to train that voice, not to lie to you, but to speak with clarity and compassion, to remind you of what matters, to keep you grounded in purpose, to call you to rise when you stumble. You don't need a perfect inner voice. You need a present one, an honest one that's aligned with your values. The people who succeed over the long term are not the ones who never get tired. They're the ones who know how to rest, how to reset, and how to return with clarity. They've learned that you can't pour from an empty cup, and you certainly can't lead from one. They build boundaries, not to push people away, but to protect the space where their best thinking happens, where the creativity lives, where their vision gets refined. That space is sacred. Guard it. There's nothing noble about running yourself into the ground. There's nothing admirable about being constantly overwhelmed. What's admirable is someone who knows their capacity and leads from it. Someone who can be fully present in the moments that matter. Someone who protects their peace, not out of fear, but out of responsibility to their work, to their mission, to the people who count on them. So ask yourself, where is your energy going? What's getting the best of you? What's draining you unnecessarily? What restores you? And how often do you make time for it? These aren't small questions. They are everything. Because protecting your energy isn't about retreating from the world. It's about rising in it with more strength, more clarity, and more intention. You don't need more time. You need more focus. You don't need more hustle. You need more alignment. And you don't need to do more. You need to do what matters with the energy that brings it to life. Protect that, guard it, prioritize it, because energy is your currency. Spend it wisely, and it will multiply. Waste it, and success will always feel just out of reach. The choice is yours.